In this video, I'm going to show you how to create this shape in OnShape. And it's kind of a unique part, and so there's going to be multiple steps for it. But I'm going to show you kind of start to finish how to make a complex shape like this. The first thing you want to do is start with a new document. So I'm going to go up here to create, and I'm going to find document right here. And it's always a good idea to name your document and name it something that is logical. I'm going to call this a tutorial shape, and this allows me to then, I could actually make numerous parts within this document, but we're going to start with just this one shape right here. And a few interesting parts to the screen. We have this middle part, the graphics window. That's where most of the model is going to be shown. On the left here, within my part studio, is actually going to be my features and sketch list. So I'll be able to see all of the three-dimensional features and all of the two-dimensional sketches in this part right here. And then up here is the view cube, and that helps me to change views of this. And if I click on the right mouse, I click and drag, I can actually change those views a little bit differently than just straight on or straight at this kind of isometric view. Up here is the toolbar, and those will actually change. These tools will change based on the tools we're using. And so I'm going to start with all parts. We start with a sketch, and so I'm going to click on this, and this blue area tells me that I need to inform the computer. I need to click on something to tell the computer where that view is. And so I'm just going to select the front view right here, and you can see that parallel to this front plane is another plane. That's my sketch 1 plane. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually, anytime I'm working two-dimensional with a sketch, I'm going to change my view to be flat and straight on. Then I'm going to take a look at my shape, and I'm going to see how I can start. So I want to think about a shape that is fairly unique, that I can then go in a specific distance. So I'm actually going to do this kind of rounded rectangle part right here. So it's square on one side and then it's rounded on the other, almost like a half of a circle over here. And so I'm going to imagine that I'm up above it and looking down. And so I've got a few different options. I've got my line tool, I've got my rectangle tool, I've got a circle tool, and then I actually have an arc tool. And for this one, I like to use the rectangle tool, so I'm just going to draw a general rectangle like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make a circle, and you can see that not only does this yellow line show up, that's telling me that wherever I click, the center of this circle is going to be on that line, but I don't want that. I actually want it to be on the center of that line. The center of this edge is going to line up with the center of my circle. So I'm going to click there when I have that box, and then I'm going to move over to this side, and I can see that there's another yellow box that shows up that tells me that this circle, this endpoint, is going to snap to that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw another circle right here. And you may have noticed that I haven't actually in any way paid attention to the dimensions, because we want to make the general shape first, and then we're going to dimension after that. And so I'm going to click on my dimension tool, and I need to look at my shape and figure out, okay, how far is it from different places, how big are the different shapes. And if I'm looking at the circle itself, this outer arc, I can see it has the radius of 1, 2, 3 squares, and each square is 1/4 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on this, And you'll notice this gives me a diameter. I had that little diameter symbol right there. And so if I can convert, I'm going to make it 1.5. So this will be 1.5 inches in diameter because the radius is 0.75. And I'm going to hit enter, and you can see my diameter is 1.5. I'll do the same thing for this inner circle right here. And the inner circle, I can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4 across. That's my diameter. And so I can actually type that in 1 inch. Okay. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define how far this line is right here. So kind of from that center of this circle all the way to the back. And so if I look at this, so I've got the center here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's going to be 1.25. It's 1/4 inch for each of those squares. And you can see that all of my lines have turned from blue to black. What that's telling me is that I have a shape that is fully constrained. The first time that I made any of my drawing tools, so I made that rectangle, my first click was right here on this origin, and what that did is it locked it into place. And so that's actually a thing you'll want to do is, have your first click of your first drawing tool be right there, and then it locks all of these into place. It makes the drawing easier, and it also can make the constraining a little simpler. From there, I'm actually going to then finish my sketch. I'm done with it. I have all the shapes I want, and then I'm going to extrude. And from here, I can see my extrude window right here. I want it to be a solid, not a surface. I'm going to create a new shape. I actually have no shape here yet. You can see I'm looking at it three-dimensionally because that's easier to see a three-dimensional feature. Right here I've got that blue box again that's telling me I need more information there. So faces and sketch regions to extrude. And so I'm going to actually select all of those faces that I want to be solid. And you'll notice that I didn't trim and I didn't make the shape the exact thing I want. Instead, what I did was I just selected all of the different shapes that showed up that are going to be extruded. This right here, you have a few options on how far you go. It can be blind, that means it goes a certain distance and stops. We've got symmetric, which means that it would go both directions the same amount. We have a few options here that I'll probably cover in a different video. And then we have through all. That just means if you're cutting something, it cuts it all the way through. In this case, I'm going to stick with blind. I can change the direction. The direction in our case right now does not matter. And then I'm going to look for the depth. So the last dimension right here is this 1 square or 1/4 of an inch in my depth. So I'll change that to 0.25. And right there, I've got a good shape. I can see that it's looking right, so I'll hit OK. You'll see those extra lines disappeared. That's why I didn't care to trim out all of those extra lines. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select a face that helps me draw the next thing. And I'm kind of going from big to small. And so in this case, I'm going to draw really quickly this shape. And I'm going to do it kind of my second way. So I'm going to move my view, and I'm going to look at this right here, this bottom shape. And from there, I can create a sketch. And this time, I'm not going to select one of my big planes. I'm going to select a face on this part because I want it to start at this side and go away from me. So I've selected that. Before I used rectangles and circles, and you can use polygons for all of this. Another way to do that is to move and use the line tool. And you'll notice that a little line to the right of my mouse shows up. And that's telling me that it's vertical, which is good. And then I'm going to move my mouse again, and I have a horizontal line right there that's telling me that I automatically have that constraint in there. I also right now, because I've moved my mouse up to be lined up with that line that I've already created, gives me that yellow line to say those are going to line up. it's not a requirement that those are true, but it does kind of just add in that constraint automatically. Sometimes I want this to actually line up with this corner as well, so I can move my mouse down and line it up. So now it's not only horizontal, it's vertical from that point. So I can click there, and then I can click there, and then you can see that edge already existed, so I didn't need to create that. It turned into this gray shape right here, kind of added some gray. Now the next thing I need to do is, after I have the shape, I need to dimension it. I need to make sure it is the correct dimension. And I can see this is from there, from the bottom, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tall. And so from this point to this point, it's 1.25 tall. Then I can see that both of these little shoulders right here are 0.25 across, so I can actually do that as well. Type in 0.25. If I want to, I can either select the two endpoints of the line, or I can select the line itself and type that in. I can also define where the center of this is. So this is actually, let's see, 1, 2, 3 from the side. So it's 0.75 from the side. And then I have to define the height, and that is, let's see, so we've got 1 square, 2 squares down, so that's 0.5. And there we go, we've got this shape all locked in. And now I'm going to finish that sketch, look at it at an angle so that I can tell where I'm extruding. I'm going to do a solid. I'm going to add material. I have faces and sketch regions. I'm going to select this right here. You can see, oh no, it's going the wrong direction, so I'm actually going to keep it blind, but I'm going to change the direction there. And then the depth here was again 0.25. And so now I have built on this other shape right there. If it's all looking good, I can hit the check mark, and now I have the beginning of this shape. And so you can kind of see what my shape is looking like now. I'm going to look at this from the right side view, and I'm going to use these arrows to kind of change the view to this right side. The next step, fairly easy. I can make a sketch right here on this side, and looking at it, I want to make that kind of rectangle area. So I'm just going to use my line tool, draw somewhere in there. I like to complete the entire shape, and then from there I can use my dimension tool and double check. Let's see, it goes 1/2 inch this direction and 3/4 of an inch this way. So it's 0.5 here, and from this line to here is 0.75. And now I've got the correct shape. It's only on the one side. That's okay. I will just do that other, adding that. It's this shape. Got to make sure it's going the right direction and make sure it is the right depth that it's going. And now you can see that it is that new correct kind of rib. Last step, fairly easy. Create a new sketch on this side, because I'm going to kind of copy that same thing. So I'm making that new sketch, and there's a little trick you can use. You can use which is also called project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this shape that already exists, and it projects onto my sketch. And it's easiest to see at an angle. You can see that all of those lines already showed up. All of the dimensions are taken from this one. So I'm actually done with this sketch. And then from there, extrude, make sure it's going the right direction, 0.25. I'm going to add to my already existing one, and then from there I have my complete shape. Okay? And that's how you create this kind of unique shape in OnShape.